welcome to the Michael Franti Stay Human podcast. This is our number 4 podcast, and we finally have a name for the show. You haven't heard about this, but we've been trying to come up with a name for the show, and some people wrote into us and said, how about Stay Human? And we've got a lot of stuff in our history about Stay Human. You know the record?
Yeah.
You guys know that? All right. So we decided to call it the Stay Human podcast. And we're very excited because our very special guest today is a band that we've been touring with over the last couple weeks, and we've done a bunch of shows with earlier in the year, and they're one of my favorite new bands anywhere. And their name is Satsang. And we got Drew here.
Hey, yo.
Drew! We got Keller! And we got Carl. Right on. So let's just start from the beginning. How did you guys all meet?
So I started the band 3 years ago with one other person after a trip to Nepal. I'd written this collection of songs, and I came home and started playing music. And then Carl and I actually lived together in Chicago 10 years ago. We met when I was 18.
Okay.
And we lived together for a while. But after I started the project, I kind of wanted to change it, so invited Carl out to join it. And then right when he joined it, I stole Keller. He was playing in an organ trio, and I saw him in Missoula, Montana, and stole him fair and square from another band.
Well, right on. Nice.
But yeah, so here we are. We've been playing us three for 18 months now.
Wow.
But
awesome.
heavy,
Yeah.
over 100 a year last year, I think.
Nice.
So.
And you were just mentioning that you were in Nepal. Tell me about that. What was that about?
I initially went over as a climber and a mountaineer mindset.
Whoa.
So
Backtrack, man. Okay. A climber? And you're climbing what? You're climbing
Well, so there's
Kathmandu,
Well,
K2,
so we hung out in Kathmandu, and
Okay.
obviously everyone goes over there for Everest, right? And
Yeah.
I am Lobuche, and there's all these other peaks over there.
Yeah.
I had saw pictures of a small village called Kenjoma, and it's funny that your partner's wearing a bouldering t-shirt, because I went over there, I saw these pictures, and I was like, I know that these are climbable.
Yeah.
And a guy that I worked at a climbing shop with was a guide over there, and he's like, I'm going there this spring by myself, you should just come with me.
Yeah.
So I went over there as a climber.
You just come with me and hang off a 20,000-foot rock and see if you can climb up it.
See if you dig it. So we did this huge traverse that was the most physically taxing thing I've ever done in my life of the Everest region. We did a big circle, but I stayed in Kenjoma and bouldered for a while.
Is this with full-on Sherpas and tons of gear?
Well, we
or is
didn't
this
bring
a
any
free
Sherpas.
climb?
It was just him and me with everything on our back for 5 weeks.
Wow.
And it was on day 3 that I visited Pashupudana, which is where they cremate everybody, and then following that, I went to the Buddhist temple, the monkey temple.
Did you go there specifically thinking I'm about to check out? I want to make sure I'm in the right place in case I need to be cremated.
Yeah.
After this climb.
Yeah. Right. Is this how I want to do it? Yeah. No, but it's just if you ever been to that part of the world, I about 3 days in was I'm not here to climb,
Yeah. It became a soul adventure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had so much healing to do. I had struggled with alcoholism. I came from an abusive home. I pretty much been on my own since I was 17. And the trip really became a place where I began to actually process these things and change my perspective on. It was the first time the phrase man, maybe all this stuff happened for you and not to you.
Right.
And maybe there's a greater purpose. Maybe all this stuff happened to you to prime you for your dharma.
Right.
And it was there that I was okay, music is it for sure.
Nice. And so at this point, were you writing songs that became part of this project?
Yeah. That's where I wrote we still play 2 of those original songs that I wrote on that trip. A song called I Am, and then every once in a while we'll play Make It Better.
Okay, so let's get to your name, because I feel like this story is maybe contains part of your name.
Yeah.
Because for most people in America, they heard the word satsang and they're thinking I don't even know what they're thinking.
Yeah.
They're thinking oh, that's a unique name.
Yeah.
Look at her face.
Yeah.
She's got the hands up. She's going.
So most people say Satsang because phonetically that's how it looks. But it was a word I learned in Kathmandu. I met this kid actually at a indoor bouldering competition in Kathmandu, and we got to talking. He's like, "Oh man, you should come." We were outside smoking together, and he's like, you should come to Satsang later. There's these really cool kids. And essentially what it is it's a meeting it's almost like a verb there, where like people just get together to they discuss Hindu theology and philosophy and try to like boil it down. You know, it's like a debate, but no one's arguing. They're just like, well, what about
discussion?
This? Yeah, very calm discussion. So, and I thought, right when I heard it, I was like, man, that'd be a great band name.
Yeah, well, it was one of the things that drew me to you guys at first, because I'm a yogi, and in yoga, it's part of what we do. Like after class, we sit down and we, you know, in Jamaica, we'd say reasoning. You know, we sit and we reason, and we talk about life. We talk about what's happening in your heart. Talk about how it relates to yoga philosophy and stuff like that. So then, after you went on this journey, and then you came back to America, or what was the process?
Yeah, I came back to America, and still I dirtbagged real hard for about another year. I you know, I have a beautiful partner that really during my journey she allowed me to go through it. But yeah, I mean, it was like climbing 5 days a week and skiing in the winter and reading and writing.
That really sounds like dirtbag.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, I had to ski 5 days a week. Oh my God.
Well, and that was just it. Is like that was like the focal point. There was like somewhere in playing outside, I'm gonna find some answers, and I did.
Nice. Nice. Let's talk about alcoholism for a minute, because I grew up in a family of alcoholics, and I never was really a drinker, but I'm a total sugar addict. Like oh my God, I ate so much darn sugar. I'm trying to quit. It's like a thing for me in the last week. I don't know if you followed me online at all, but I've been trying desperately to quit sugar, but I come from a family. My father was an alcoholic, and I grew up in that experience, and I ran away when I was 17. I came back, and I told my dad I wasn't going to move into the house unless he stopped drinking, and he actually did.
Nice.
But then I stopped. I only lived there for a couple months before I moved out, and I never really knew him as a sober man until much later in life. He had a stroke, and it was like a butterfly had been cocooning for 66 years, and after that he came out of this stroke, and he blossomed into this went from being like the meanest prick ever to being like this most beautiful man that I had ever known. And so I'm wondering, did you have that experience with yourself or with your family?
You know, for me, I was raised by my stepdad, but he married my mom when I was 2. Alcoholic, gambling addict, mean Irish asshole. You know, he just for drill, you know, kicked the shit out of my brother and I when he would drink. And my brother went to the war in Iraq. He had gotten in a fight, and they essentially propositioned him because he had been lightly talking to this army recruiter, and they were like, we can make these charges go away if you go. So when my brother dipped to Iraq, that was like my exit. You know, I stayed with a friend for a while and slept on people's couches, and then eventually moved to Chicago a year or so later and lived with my sister. But for me, it was just I kind of hit a crossroad, you know, like I was where it was either I was going to be my dad, or not, you know. And I have 3 stepkids that I've been with for over 7 years that I call my own, and you know, looking at them was like, man, I don't want their memories of me to be this guy. I want their memories to be a lot different.
Nice.
So I kind of used my dad as a compass of like, you know, what would he do in this situation, and then try to do the opposite.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's good. Well, I'm happy you're here, and I'm happy you're healthy, and
thanks.
I love your music. So let's talk about the music for a little while. What is your mission? Like, what as a group? What is your band's mission? Do you ever talk about that? Like, we are trying to blank.
You know, we've actually have a lot of resonance with people that struggle with addiction, and I think it's just because it's kind of coded in the lyrics. For me, I always come back to like, I think the greatest lie that's ever been told is there's this whole, the industry, like every industry is essentially based around you're too fat, you're too skinny, you're too this, you're too that. And when you can get to a place like I did, that I still struggle with sometimes, of that like self-love of being like, no man, you are enough, you're good enough, and you're great. I would say that's the first mission, but also, you know, as a student of history and civil rights, and especially current administration, you know, I think music has always been a form of news. You know, like how I found your music, it helped me process 2002 to 2004. You know what I mean? It really helped me process it. So like self-love, but also, you know, like a call to action in these times. I think it's really important for us to stand up for each other.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. I'm going to keep asking a couple more questions, but I want you guys to think if you have any questions, and then I'll call on you. You can raise your hand just like in school, and I'll call on you.
Do you want me to tell you how I found your music?
Yeah.
Because it's a cool story.
Tell me the story. Yeah.
So, like I said, my brother got in this fight. School was always really tough for him. He didn't do well in school. Yeah. So he got in this fight, and he was propositioned, you know, you can go to basic training and go to the war in Iraq.
Wow.
Or join active duty, and we'll make this trouble go away. So he went, and at that time I was listening to like Public Enemy, Bad Religion, the U.S. Bombs, Anti-Flag, like all punk rock, hip hop, anti-system, and I heard Yell Fire riding in a friend's car. Yeah. And I just started crying and was like, oh, no shit. Yeah. Like, this is what's up. And then that entire record, you know, like Time to Come Home, like that was the thing. You know, my brother went over there so full of piss and vinegar, and we're going to do this. And I mean, like a few months in, he was like, dude, this is not what's up. I want to go the fuck home. And all of us do. Yeah. I mean, yeah. And I know, the documentary actually just found it. I know
I'm not alone.
Yeah, right? Yeah. So watching that movie, and I just thought, it was such a moving thing to see everyone talking about the war, but then to see someone be like, "Well, I'm gonna go check this shit out." Yeah. And then we'll talk about it.
Yeah. Well, I was sitting on the bus just like this. We were watching TV, and I was like watching generals and politicians talk about the economic cost and the political cost of the war in Iraq when it first started. But they never showed anybody who was there. They never showed any human beings on the ground. They never talked to any soldiers who were there fighting. And I was like, I want to go there and see it with my own eyes. And so I took my guitar and video camera and a few friends when we went there, and we checked out what was going on. And I thought I would come back and write 10 angry songs speaking out against war. But really what happened to me when I went there and I spent time in families' homes, like going into the basement of a family who showed me where they hid during the bombings. And they said, you know, when the bombs would come, we'd hide in the basement. It would be pitch black because all the power would go out in the whole community. And we'd put blankets over our children in the middle of the floor. And I was like, why did you put blankets over kids if like a bomb is going to fall? What's that going to do? And they said, well, when the bombs go off, even if they're, you know, blocks away, all the glass shatters and it comes in and it hits us, you know. So to like hear experience of that, and as a father, you know, I live in San Francisco, I'm trying to think, what would I tell my kids the night before, you know, another country was going to, you know, come and bomb us, you know? And I'm like sitting there, I don't even know what I would tell my kids, you know, like tell them the truth about what's going to happen to a 6-year-old, or, you know, try to make up some fantasy or something, or there's going to be these loud noises or whatever. So, you know, then meeting soldiers there, I had that same experience that you described of your brother, of people who were super gung-ho when they went there, and then when they left or while they were there, they were saying, you know, I thought we were over here because Saddam had weapons of mass destruction, right. And then there was, you know, he had been involved in 9/11. Now we find out these things aren't true, and what are we doing, you know? Mm-hmm. And so I was saying that I thought I'd write 12 angry songs about war, but I ended up writing a lot of songs about love, about connection, about how people get along, about families, about tenacity, you know, and you know, that became my experience there. So
yeah, and it was, for me too, like I still have this, like I was saying to you, I just had a really actually heavy experience with a Lakota elder in Minnesota. He was one of the founding members of AIM, and me, him, and Uncle Joe were sitting down, and he was telling me these stories of like 4 different times he's had someone that he knew to be an oppressor in his crosshairs, and he had the moral question of like to pull the trigger or not to pull the trigger, and like processing all of this hate and this anger. And I had so much of that in me, especially my brother came home with severe PTSD. Wow. And the answer was, here's a pill. This one makes me feel this way. I can't take it anymore. Well, here's another one. You know, that was the thing. And I just watched him kind of unravel for a really long time, and he's just now kind of coming back together. So when I was having this, my big theme recently is trying to find this balance of like, what is my philosophy on violence, nonviolence, anger, love, because there's these things that make us angry. And when we were leaving, I was given this this piece of pipestone that he had carved into a crosshair, and he said, be careful what you put into your crosshairs, and don't let your anger become the collective anger. Don't let your fight become their fight.
Yeah. And is that part of your music now, is to communicate that?
Yeah, and it's important for me too. I draw and counsel a lot, you know, so if I'm, like I said, you know, like when we were like on day one, I was like, man, if we could sit down and talk, like people that are ahead of me, it's really important to me to talk to them, because like, especially with your music, it's apparent that you have processed all of this stuff and come to this place, like you said yesterday, I want the swing vote, you know, I want those in-betweens, and I still struggle with that anger and the system that I know is wrong. I still struggle with it too on a daily basis. I'm you know, I wake up in the morning and I hear the news and I'm like, I'm so pissed off. And it's like I got to go on stage and you know, and sometimes, you know, I want to vent that, but I try to make it be in a way that people understand the passion behind my conviction and my beliefs, but that I'm still open to listening what other people have to say from different opinions or different walks of life or different political perspectives. You nail that.
And I try to make music that does that, that opens that up.
I think like Good to Be Alive today, I that nails that.
Nice. Thank
you. Know, like
you.
I'm pissed off, but I'm a human, you're a human.
Yeah. Let's relate. So, you guys got any questions? Go for it.
So you are skiing, you are rock climbing, you're doing all that stuff. What made you eventually decide, like, yep, I'm starting a band right now today? What was the reason?
Well, like I said, I had written these songs and started working through them, and then had another band made, and we were playing, and you know, the furthest away from home we'd get is like Minnesota and stuff like that. But it was really, it was really when I started meeting people that were telling me like, no, this is a thing, man, you can do that, you know, like Wookie Foot, Nako, these people that were like, you got this, keep doing it, especially when these two joined. Then it was like, then everyone was like, well, these two are
these guys
so damn talented.
These guys are badass.
Yeah, some bad dudes. So it went from being this like singy songwriting thing to us like forming these songs with stops and like this dynamic stuff. You know, Keller went to music school, Carl went for a little bit. They're both geniuses, just wicked intelligent dudes.
Right on.
You know.
Anybody else?
How did you decide, like, the genre or the type of music, or did it kind of find you? Was it something you knew ahead of time, or was it as you were writing the songs, it just said, hey, this is kind of where we're going?
She asked, how did you decide on the genre? I'm just saying it into the microphone.
Yeah.
How did you decide on your genre of music? Or just
it kind of came naturally, you know, because we listened to so much stuff. Like, we actually, today went from, like, bumping, like, an 80s pop playlist to, like, a Wilson Pickett radio, you know, like, and all across the board. But hip hop has always been probably my biggest influence, hip hop and reggae.
Yeah.
And then getting really into soul music when I met him. Like, I've always liked old soul, but Keller really turned me on to like Anthony Hamilton, Bilal, you know, Erykah Badu, this whole Soulquarians crew, and anything Dilla ever did, you know.
Nice. So how did you get into that? Living in Montana. Talk to me, Keller. Talk to me, man.
Can I grab?
Yeah, sit. Just hopped in Captain Kirk's seat right
Woo,
there. Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah. So how did you get into that kind of neo soul and? Yeah.
So I'm originally from Wyoming, and
the birthplace of neo soul.
Exactly, right. But my father was a music educator, and really inspiring for kids.
Yeah.
And especially jazz, that was like his big thing.
Yeah.
And so I come from like a really big jazz background.
Okay.
And through learning, you know, the jazz language and all of this like deep rooted music, I found my own little path that stemmed from that into hip hop and soul, especially like modern soul. And a lot of the guys I was playing with too in Montana and Colorado were like, oh, you dig Miles is playing on this record.
Yeah.
Well, you're gonna dig this record that's like soul, but I mean they cut Miles samples all the time. Like check it out.
Yeah.
And through this, I mean, and especially like nowadays, like jazz isn't, you know, what we think of as jazz. It's like there's so many different influences. Yeah. Soul and hip hop being like a big part. You know? And so that was like,
and there's so much of it just blending in, you know, like Flying Lotus, who's doing like hip hop and really like serious jazz, and then all of like,
I mean, Robert Glasper, like when Black Radio came out, that like in a crazy way changed like what jazz was to be, you know.
Nice,
but like Flying Lotus and like the Thundercat crew.
Yeah.
I mean, even with like Kendrick Lamar's album.
Kendrick Lamar, I was just going to say.
To Pimp a Butterfly coming out.
Yeah.
Like,
This is actually the new hip hop.
Yeah.
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 It is the new hip hop.
Yeah. And I mean,
it is incredible to see now how there's so many artists in hip hop today who not even doing like classic songs. There's no hook in the song, you know. Like if you listen
freeform,
to, or like Joey Badass, it's like 3 minutes and it's just rhymes, you know, the whole way through. Or MF Doom, who's like, I just love, you know, I just sit and listen to him all night long and just rhymes and flows, and there's never like a chorus to the song ever. It really is like,
but it's all like real storytelling stuff.
Storytelling,
and that's the roots for sure. And I think that's what drew me to that type of music too, is because like there's, you know, a deep story in that. But on top of that, like as a drummer, it just has like the fattest groove.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like not only am I like taking in this like really cool storytelling.
Yeah.
But also, you know, there's something I'm like bobbing my head to. I'm like, oh, you know, throw my headphones, like sit behind my set.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember in junior high I would spend hours in my, like probably pissing off my mom, you know, just playing her records.
Nice. Know? I still piss off my mom.
Yeah. Heard that.
So to get from the drums to the vocals and the melody, you got to have something in between, and that is the bass. The bass, man, to get the rhythm to the melody. So hop in here, man. Swap it out. Let's get Uncle Drew up in here. Oh no, sorry, Uncle Carl. Carl. We already got Uncle Drew. Uncle Carl, talk to me, man. Where are you from?
I'm actually originally from Chicago.
Oh, right on.
And I grew, you know, I grew up outside of the city, and then I lived downtown for about 12 years before Drew coaxed me out to Montana.
Yeah.
So it's I lived with him we lived together for a couple years down, and then.
So what was that like? Drew calls you, he's like, bro, I got this great thing. We're gonna start a band, and we're going to. You're like, New York, LA, Miami. We're going to Billings.
You know, he had kind of been slipping, you know, little hints here and there over the years, and I had hit a point in Chicago where I was just kind of stuck in a rut. You know, I was working as a DJ in the bar scene out there, doing spinning top 40, and then occasionally I'd get like a break, and I'd get to do some fun hip hop gigs.
What did you learn from that though?
I learned, actually, I kind of gained a respect for a lot of music that I normally would have never introduced myself to on my own.
Yeah.
So like dance music, and then different types of hip hop, like even just like respecting the role of pop music.
Yeah.
I think that was a big lesson, because I was always kind of like the musical Puritan, you know. It was like,
the reason I asked that is because I had a similar thing. I mean, I grew up listening to, you know, in our house there was so much music between my brothers and sisters. Everything from singer-songwriters like Jim Croce, you know, and Carly Simon and James Taylor, to Earth, Wind and Fire and P-Funk and Parliament, Funkadelic. My first concert I ever went to was the Commodores.
Nice.
I was 12 years old, bought a ticket for $8, and I was there, and Lionel Richie comes up on this ascending white piano from below the stage. And he's playing 3 Times a Lady on a white grand piano, you know?
Yeah.
I was like, I'm hooked, you know? But then I went through this like period of total rebellion, and I only listened to like hip hop and punk rock, you know? And, you know, and then my first band, the Beatniks, we toured with, you know, Fugazi was our opening act.
Nice.
Our first tour of Europe,
awesome.
you know?
Yeah.
And we played with all the, the Operation Ivy guys who went on to become Rancid and Green Day, and like the whole Gilman Street Project scene. We were on the cover of Maximum Rock and Roll, and so I went through this period of like just hating anything in pop music, and then I started listening to songs and going into. I fell in love with songsmithing, like the actual writing of songs, and I can hear it.
What year was it?
Oh man, probably in the early '90s is when I first started getting really into like song. I had this band, Disposable Heroes of Hypocrisy, and we had a song called Television, the Drug of the Nation, and it was used by U2 to open their Zoo TV tour.
All right.
And so we got invited by U2 to go on tour. We were driving a little white van around, and U2 called like that, like yours right there,
like Benicio.
And they're like, come out on the tour with us. And so now we're in a little white van following 200 trucks and tour buses, to go and play in Yankee Stadium.
That's awesome.
I saw Bono a few months ago in England, and I was like, I remember when we played Yankee Stadium, you were the fourth band, the fourth artist to ever play there. It was like a really, an amazing thing. There was the Pope, and then there was Nelson Mandela, and then there was Billy Joel, and then you too.
And Billy Joel.
And I was like, but it was actually the Pope, Nelson Mandela, Billy Joel, and then my band played. We opened, and then you guys played. Yeah.
It fit me in right there.
But while I was out on tour with them, I saw the power of melody.
Yeah.
And I saw like Bono sing like this, yo, and then he'd hold the mic up to the crowd, and the whole crowd together would sing.
That big
and there
response.
was this power of like rhythm, melody, singing along to songs that people know together.
Right.
And that the words and the meaning and the spirit behind the band was invested in like truth and human rights and dignity for all people and equality, and I was like, there's something that's more powerful than just like standing on the stage and being pissed off and yelling at the crowd, and that there was another way of doing this. And so I started falling in love with Johnny Cash, the Man in Black, who decided to only wear black for as long as there were poor people
Johnny
on
Cash,
Earth. That was his thing, to identify. And John Lennon, and then I would listen to Run DMC in the same way. Like, what is their song structure? How did they do it? How do these things come to be? So pop music there's something very worthy in it,
right?
If it's
and I
it's
think
a great song.
It was really great for me to have that experience, just and kind of open myself to that, because then I think by the time I got out to Montana and started working with Drew, I was open to creating, and had I think we had both grown so much, because we had spent about 6 years away, just not playing, we were communicating frequently, but not in a musical setting. So when we arrived, we had developed as musicians, and artists enough. Yeah, we did. Wow. We did our first record. Yeah.
Congratulations!
And it was quite the experience. It was a tumultuous but really inspiring 10 days. Awesome. So it was great, and a lot of good has come from it. And then,
do you guys have any other questions for these guys?
Where to next? You guys stay on tour with Mike?
Yeah, we're with.
Want to pop back in, Drew?
Yeah, we we'll be with these guys for 2 more days, and then we go meet up with Trevor Hall, and we do like a week and a half with him, and then we have
Trevor Hall is an amazing singer-songwriter and philosopher. I think of him as, he's a very like spiritual and mindful guy, but he has this really beautiful husky voice, and he plays incredible guitar. He like puts all the like, his voice is here, and like this breath just goes over the microphone.
It's heavy. That was a great description. Yeah. We'll do a little bit of Trevor tour, and then festivals, and then we meet back up with these guys in August, and we get to play venues that I grew up. We always joke. I call them "I told you so" venues.
Nice.
The principal of my high school, I kept joking like, I'm gonna send him Simon Estes tickets. And be like, told you.
Nice.
So thank you for that.
You're welcome. You're welcome. All right, so we're gonna wrap it up here, but I have one final question for you, which is, we're in this time right now when there's so much division in the world, politically, socially, about the environment, over sexuality, over religion. What role does music play today? And not just specifically your music, but it could be music in general, but also your music. What role does it play in trying to heal that?
I think music is just a universal language. Trump supporter, Bernie supporter, gay, straight, whatever. No one when you're like, do you like music? Are they gonna be like, hell no? You know, like, so music is this thing where people can be like, we might not agree on this, but man, I love Michael Franti. Yeah. And then what happens is that vibration during a live show happens, and that's when people's hearts change. You know, like for me personally, I've had transcendent experience at shows that have made me cry, that have made me leave. You know, so I think that's its role, is that it's not even changing minds, it changes hearts, and then when your heart starts changing, then your mind can open to the message that you're receiving. So what I hope, like I said to you the other night, I was like, man, you guys just hit the love button. I don't know if I'm there yet because I'm young and I'm still kind of pissed, but I'm getting there, and I want to be there.
Oh, I am too.
But what I hope that we are able to do as a band is touch people in their hearts so they can receive the message of the important stuff. You know. Yeah.
Right on. Well, thank you guys for being here.
Thank you.
People can find you on socials at
Satsang Movement or Satsang Music, and then our website is satsangmovement.com, and it's spelled Satsang, Satsang. Right
on. Well,
thanks for having us.
Thank you guys for being here. We got Drew, Carl, Keller, and we've got all these amazing people here up in Ithaca, New York on our tour bus. Thanks for being here on the Stay Human podcast number 4. Stay tuned. Next week, we will be interviewing Sean Spicer.
Can I come?
Yeah, you can come, man. All right. He'll be right here in the tour bus with us.
Oh, man. Wouldn't it be good to have him alone for a minute?
It would be nice to have.
I'm just kidding.
Johnny Depp got in trouble for that comment the other day.
Oh, man.
Anyway, thanks for being here, you guys. And thank you, studio audience, live studio audience. Excellent.
All right. Respect.